Ba-dum-ba-doo-dee-dum. I wanna be loved by you, just you.
Marilyn Monroe died, officially a suicide, 11 years ago. But Norman Mailer speculates it may have been murder. In his new biography of Marilyn, Mailer writes of her friendship with Bobby Kennedy and theorizes that she was done in by right-wing elements of the FBI or CIA to embarrass the Kennedys.
So, if she could be murdered in such a way that it would look like a suicide for unrequited love of Bobby Kennedy, it would be a huge embarrassment for the Kennedys.
At the opening in 1869, all the royalty of Europe, Prussia, Russia, and France were present. For the occasion, the Italian composer Giuseppe Verdi was commissioned to write an opera. He wrote Aida. Verdi's music, it seems, will outlive the canal.
A 55-year-old guy, if he'll stay on his vitamin pill program, take those 415 vitamins every day, and jog and train and keep his tennis up, why, you can last and beat those girls forever, see?
Bobby, you don't really take 450.
I certainly have for the last 6, 7 weeks in a row.
I've gotten so sometimes I can get 10, 12 at one time, at one gulp.
I'm Mike Wallace.
I'm Morley Sabe. Those stories and more tonight on 60 Minutes.
This portion of 60 Minutes is sponsored by
Northwestern Mutual Life, the quiet company people have been talking about for over 100 years.
You know, the best things in life aren't free. Not by a long shot. Like my car. I saved for it, and I'm still paying for it, but at least I'm enjoying it now. But my neighbor, Ross, he's the security-minded type. So much of his money goes into life insurance that last year he couldn't even take a vacation. Now that's overinsured. Me, I'm with Northwestern Mutual Life. They're the 7th largest life insurance company in America. And believe me, those Northwestern fellas are different. They understood that I had only so much money for life insurance. Oh, I wanted the protection all right for the wife and kids, but I had other expenses too. Bills, mortgage, car payments. So they fixed me up. Now I've got a good, solid insurance program, and I still have enough money to pay my bills and really enjoy a good life. The Northwestern. I tell you, they're my kind of company.
Northwestern Mutual Life, the quiet company people have been talking about for over 100 years.
Marilyn Monroe died 11 years ago, officially a suicide. She left behind a legacy someone described as a purity of sexual delights. Not for Monroe the tawdry, pornographic excess that has engulfed us in the decades since she died. Her gift was humor and a sensual promise that left the silky best of her to our imagination. In the decade that has passed, the market for Monroe memorabilia has never waned. Books and pictures, paintings and photographs. And now comes a marriage of Mailer and Monroe, Bonanza. Norman Mailer, the master of machismo, novelist, journalist, Pulitzer Prize winner, in his first effort at biography, a book about Marilyn laced with pictures by the men whose photographs chronicled her short, skyrocketing career. A book to sell for a nickel under $20. A book Mailer acknowledges he wrote in just 60 days.
Why'd you write the book? I told you I started to write it as to do a preface to pick up a sum of money. It was a book which was a commercial venture for me. I needed some money very badly. And then what happened is I fell in love with the material.
Mailer never met Monroe. The material he fell in love with was magazine articles and films, and other writers' biographies of the lady.
The book was written to be a preface to a book of photographs, with an absolute iron-bound agreement by me to deliver it in 2 months, because huge printing plants all over the world were sitting there waiting to get going. There were all sorts of commitments. I'm a professional writer. I took it on as a 2-month commitment to do a preface. writing it that way, I had to take certain dares and certain gambles, because there was no time to go out and interview people.
Without time to do interviews, Mailer relied on other sources for his information. Maurice Zolotow and Fred Giles, whose books became the skeletons upon whose facts Mailer hung his speculations.
I'll do it with the limited materials I have, to wit Giles and Zolotow and other sources. You know, that were worth the only 2 books I read. I read about 7 or 8 books finally on her, one way or another. And that I would then, when the book was done, check up on it. In other words, I was going to use my instinct and carry as far as I could, and I was going to check up on it. So where I had made certain errors that I felt were serious errors, I'd be able to announce them. I don't pretend to the reader that I'm discovering new facts. I tell the reader 10 times over that I'm depending on other books, that this is a secondary work.
The primary work on Marilyn is Fred Giles' book. Mailer freely acknowledges he owes much to it. Nonetheless, he was accused of plagiarism by Giles' British publisher, who says that massive sections of the Giles book were used without permission.
Do you always put quotes around all of Giles's material?
No, for a very simple reason, which is that when it seems to me it's clear to the reader that it's from Giles's material, and that I'm drawing from Giles's material, which always is led by a quote, because I'm very careful about this. I consider myself scrupulous about this sort of thing. You know, what do I have any interest at this point in my career in stealing from other writers?
If Mailer's publishers, Grosset and Dunlap, felt uneasy about the 255 quotations from Giles' book in Mailer's book, it was not apparent at the $25,000 cocktail party they threw for Mailer in Beverly Hills last month, at the time of the American Booksellers Convention. The literary cocktail party is a hoary device with publishers. Every major effort, it seems, must be launched with hors d'oeuvre and booze. Marilyn was no exception. And the author, whose financial commitments to ex-wives and children are said to be gargantuan, fully understood that if he helped to sell the book, his take, his royalties, would mount accordingly. So he bravely made small talk with bookstore owners from around the country.
I haven't read this, but I hear nothing but terrific things.
Well, people are just not used to me writing a book that they can read with pleasure. So they're all tickled pink.
Bob Markell is editor-in-chief of Grosset and Dunlap. He told us why the Monroe book is so crucial to the future of his company.
It's become a sort of symbol of a new, rejuvenated Grosset and Dunlap, which is going on to become an adult trade publisher and to take its place in the ranks with Simon & Schuster, Random House, Viking, some of the other great American publishing houses.
What did Grosset and Dunlap used to be?
Well, it used to be thought of as the publisher of Nancy Drew and the Hardy Boys.
The man whose idea the book had been from the beginning is a photographer-promoter from California, Larry Schiller. He had photographed Marilyn late in her life, and it was he who put together the financial pieces of the deal.
Let me understand some of the financial arrangements, Mr. Schiller. I've been told that Grosset and Dunlap put up $100,000 in front money to Mailer and the photographers. Can you...
That's correct. They gave us $100,000. 50 was given to Norman, 50 the photographers. He received approximately a third of the royalties, and the photographers received the rest.
How much do you think that conceivably you might realize from this venture?
Well, you must realize that the sale of the book is one thing, the publication of the story and pictures in magazines around the world is another area. Combined, the book might gross $800,000, the ancillary rights maybe $500,000-600,000, maybe $1.25 million over a 2 or 3 year period. That would be the amount of money that could possibly be earned by the photographers and Norman.
And for Grosset and Dunlap?
Well, they receive a third, so of those rights, you'd have to add a third to it.
At the New York headquarters of Grosset and Dunlap, a huge promotion push is underway. Television specials have been lined up, plus a publicity junket for Mailer.
Start off with Today Show in New York, and then we'll go directly to the coast. And hopefully we'll do Los Angeles and perhaps a day in San Francisco, and then fly out to Chicago, pick up 2 shows there. And that's it for Mailer to the present, and we hope to use him again in New York.
And Bob Markell has a notion for an in-store counter card.
Consider the possibility of simply putting on the tagline that other people have been using about this book. Just put up there, instead of any of that type, the book of the year.
If Marilyn does become the book of the year, its last chapter will be the reason. For it deals in sensational fashion with Monroe's relationship with the Kennedys, both the president and his brother Bobby. Mailer hazards a bizarre theory about the cause of Marilyn's death.
All Hollywood was gossiping about Marilyn having an affair with Bobby Kennedy, which I believe, in fact, she was not having, although they were dear and close friends. So, if she could be murdered in such a way that it would look like a suicide for unrequited love of Bobby Kennedy, it would be a huge embarrassment for the Kennedys. And there were people around in those days, in the CIA and the FBI, who hated the Kennedys like few presidents have ever been hated, because they had pigs. And because a lot of people in the FBI thought that Kennedy was moving to the left and was creating a rapprochement with the communists. I'm saying that some of them may decide it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world to knock off Marilyn Monroe.
You don't believe that she was murdered, though, really? Down bottom.
Well, no, I don't know. I didn't know her.
I say you don't believe it.
If you ask me to give a handicapper's estimate of what it was, I'd say it's 10 to 1 that it was an accidental suicide. 10 to 1, anyway.
At least.
But I could not ignore the possibility of a murder.
And do you believe that Bobby Kennedy was there, had been with her that night?
It's possible.
I'm asking you again.
I don't know.
Handicapping.
I'd say it's even money. Because he was the kind of man, I think, who if
That's her house?
Well, no, I think what happened is at a certain point, you know, there's so many different versions of The Last Night that in the book I don't attempt to give a version of The Last Night, give the reader several different versions. Or, you know, there are versions where she was out at a dinner party at Peter Lawford's house, which I don't think holds up much. But you can't tell. No one's talking. And no one's going to talk about that night.
Mailer is wrong. Someone is talking about that night. The one person, in fact, who could invalidate all of Mailer's tortured theorizing about a Monroe murder plot. She is Eunice Murray, Marilyn's housekeeper, who was with her on the night she died.
Mrs. Murray, the most controversial aspect of Norman Mailer's book deals with his theorizing about the death of Marilyn Monroe. Among the various theories he offers is an implied affair between Bobby Kennedy and Marilyn, which could have led to her murder by right-wing elements of the FBI or the CIA. Now, as her companion and housekeeper, you were with her that last night. Could such a murder have taken place?
Definitely not.
You say definitely not. Why?
Impossible. Because I was alone there with her. The doors were locked. We had gone to bed, and there wasn't any. No one was around.
Mailer describes several versions of her last night, several possible versions. One, given by a reporter who would not allow his name to be used, writes Mailer, offers a quiet party at Marilyn's house, attended by Peter Lawford, Bobby Kennedy, Pat Newcomb, and yourself, Mrs. Murray. After dinner, the others want to go on to the beach, but Marilyn wishes to stay where she is and then wants Bobby to stay with her. Kennedy refuses and leaves a little later. Marilyn begins to call a little later and keeps on phoning him.
What could I say? It isn't true. That's all. I mean, it just didn't happen.
Bobby Kennedy was not there that night?
No.
Peter Lawford?
No.
Pat Newcomb?
No.
You were?
That's right.
In doing his research for the book, Norman Mailer never got to you.
That's right. I think it was reported that I was in hiding.
Yes, it is.
It's very funny. My name is in the telephone directory, and I have never made any effort to hide.
If Mailer and his publisher couldn't find Mrs. Murray, it was because they didn't really try.
It's as though you and your publishers didn't want too many of the facts, but were more anxious for the controversy, for the mystery, a mystery that could have been very quickly helped along, or solved, if you will, or a mystery on which a considerable amount of light could be shed by the simple expedient of picking up a telephone and calling Eunice Murray.
No, wait a minute. We obviously discussed the possibility of calling Eunice Murray, calling all of them. I vetoed it because I said I hate telephone interviews, and I do. As a writer, I hate them. I hate that way of getting facts. And I just don't like to work that way. I don't believe in fact gathering.
Then you get on a plane, you go to Los Angeles?
I told you, I had a choice. I was coming down to a deadline. I had something like 20,000 words to finish in the last week.
Facts,
Norman. Now, wait a moment, Mike. Let me just give you my attitude on it. What I knew was I was sailing into a sea of troubles, and I said, fine. That's what we're going to sail into, because the alternative was this. I did not have the time to do both.
Grosset and Dunlap editor-in-chief Bob Markell.
You asked the question of whether we have a degree of responsibility in seeing to it that Mr. Mailer, who has the greatest degree of responsibility, did a thorough and proper job of checking the various facts involved.
In some cases, a writer goes too far with interviews. It talks to too many people. He might have become too much involved in a detective chase by speaking to too many people who might have been able to provide only a portion of the clues that would be necessary for a full-scale research job into this thing.
The fact is that Mr. Mailer is not unconcerned about what this book will do to his reputation. He asked me if I thought it was a good biography.
Is it a good biography? I gotta say no.
You don't think it's a good biography?
Because you acknowledge that you have taken most of your chronological material from a couple of other people. You don't know if it's accurate or not. And in the crucial last chapter, you failed to do the necessary research that would have made it a good biography.
Mike, we can go round and round on it. Let me just say, I made my point, I'll make it again. I was doing something that you don't normally do in a book, which is getting into the end of a book with a half-finished exploration. And I decided it was important enough to get out there half-finished, rather than not to get into it at all.
The best criticism of the book we've heard so far is Norman Mailer's own. It got out there half-finished. But Grosset and Dunlap is happy, of course, because the book is doing superbly. It's getting almost as much publicity as Clifford Irving's never-published biography of Howard Hughes. Time magazine has given it a cover, Ladies' Home Journal has serialized it, and the Book of the Month Club has selected it for August. A couple of Miss Monroe's former husbands, Joe DiMaggio and Arthur Miller, have said not to like it much, but they don't want to talk about it. And the Kennedy family won't be happy about all the speculation. But no matter, the book will sell.
My Johnny, 10 years old and all thumbs. Got the magic touch. Can turn anything to ich. Fortunately, I have my own magic touch. Formula 409. 409 is like magic. Just spray and wipe. Goodbye grease, goodbye dirt, goodbye ich. 409 spray cleaner. Plus, thank goodness, a money-saving refill. You'll never defeat me.
Square Shooter 2 Land camera, only $24.95.
Is there any other way?
6 years ago, the Egyptian military establishment was humiliated by Israel in what has come to be known as the Six-Day War. But Egypt lost more than her army and her Soviet arsenal. She lost the Suez Canal, which was, mile for mile, probably the most important strip of strategic land and water in the world. The canal remains closed. The Israelis refuse to budge from its east bank. Egypt has lost billions of dollars, and the world has lost an important link. But how much of a loss has it really been? Tonight we examine Suez, the canal that in its day was a kind of eighth wonder of the world. In engineering terms, in the 19th century, it was equal to man's voyage to the moon in the 20th. From deep in space, our planet is a friendly place, silent, unified. The great land masses are deserted, the troubled parts at peace. The familiar battleground pierced by the Suez Canal is nothing more than a sunlit landmark for the 20th century voyager. And down at sea level, the reality. The canal is as silent and placid here as it is 100 miles up in space. This wonder of 19th century engineering that once symbolized the economic unity of the world slowly fills up with sand. When the world could no longer use it, it found it no longer needed it, fulfilling perhaps an ancient Egyptian prophecy. The pharaohs saw the advantage of linking the Red Sea to the Mediterranean 25 centuries ago. The young pharaoh Necho proposed one of the earliest canals, but a local seer warned him that to pierce the Isthmus of Suez would only bring trouble to Egypt, trouble and intrigue and meddling foreigners. Despite that warning, he and others built many canals. Those canals and that peak of Egyptian civilization vanished under the sands of centuries. It took a flamboyant French diplomat adventurer named Ferdinand de Lesseps to persuade the Khedive of Egypt to let him build his canal. He formed the Universal Suez Marine Company. It took 10 years to build, and the labor of 20,000 Egyptian peasants, using methods that had not changed in 1,000 years. At the opening in 1869, all the royalty of Europe, Prussia, Russia, and France were present. For the occasion, the Italian composer Giuseppe Verdi was commissioned to write an opera. He wrote Aida. Verdi's music, it seems, will outlive the canal.
A writer of the time said, "Fireworks in front of the Viceroy's palace, luxurious dinners, vintage wines, exquisite fish, partridges, wild duck."
7,000 or 8,000 people sitting down to dinner in the middle of the desert, like something out of the Arabian Nights. It was the greatest festival that Egypt had seen since the days of the Ptolemies. La Belle France in the middle of the desert. Perhaps the first and last time that the canal was a manifestation of uninhibited joy and pleasure. It brought a degree of sophistication and glamour to Egypt that she was not to see again. The fireworks had barely died away when the great powers saw the strategic and economic advantage of de Lesseps' dream. Britain, with the help of the Rothschilds, bought a substantial share, to the delight of Queen Victoria and her expanding empire east of Suez. The savings were dramatic. On the trip to Europe from India or the Persian Gulf, nearly 5,000 miles were cut from what had originally been an 11,000-mile voyage round the southern tip of Africa. And to the east coast of America, the route was shortened by 3,600 miles. Between the two world wars, the canal prospered. In the 20s, the great Peninsular and Orient liners plied between Europe and the Far East, traveling in the grand manner. Delicate, fair-skinned ladies always had cabins on the shady side. Posh, it was called. Port out, starboard home. Egypt and the canal were quaint shortcuts viewed through a haze of cool pink gin. The company grew rich, but hardly a piastre of the profits went to Egypt. The country was in theory independent, but Europe still regarded it as a profitable place to exploit. Its profits ensured by the presence of the British Army. After centuries of serfdom, the Egyptians finally found themselves a leader, Gamal Abdel Nasser. In 1955, he nationalized the canal. Britain and France were enraged.
Our survival as a nation depends on oil, and nearly 3/4 of our oil comes from that part of the world. As a Labour member of Parliament, speaking in support of the government, put it, to be without oil, I quote you, to be without oil is to see our industries grind to a standstill and starvation overtake the people.
Anthony Eden was to lose his health and his reputation on the shoals of Suez. To protect their interests, Britain and France, in collusion with Israel, invaded in November 1956. The canal was blocked by scuttled Egyptian ships. World opinion forced the three nations to withdraw, and the waterway was cleared. Despite European predictions that Egyptians could never operate the canal, that it would become another sanded-up ditch, Egypt guided it through its most profitable decade. Bigger convoys than the European pilots thought possible went through twice daily. Revenues in 10 years rose from less than $100 million to near $500 million. But a disquieting 75% of that came from oil tankers. It was a golden decade, too, for American and Western European industry. The demand for Middle East oil rose steadily. The oil business needed the canal. The canal depended on oil. Egypt became increasingly militant. She had money, and she had the most up-to-date arsenal in the Middle East. Her old enemy, Israel, was still barred from using the canal. In 1967, Nasser threw the United Nations peacekeeping force out of the Sinai Desert, bringing the war that he had promised the Egyptian people. In lightning strokes, Israel destroyed Egypt's air force in the first few hours of war. On the ground, Israeli armor once again raced for the canal. The tanks modified to run for 17 hours without refueling. Heavy guns that could reach retreating Egyptian armor had been mounted. All over in less than a week. 6 disastrous days for Egypt. It was a terrible blow, economically and psychologically. The Suez Canal buildings under Europeans, then under Egyptian authority, were models of efficiency. They once hummed with the easy camaraderie of men in white tropicals, tallying the ebb and flow of most of the world's goods. They now lay like corpses in the desert. For 1 million Egyptians living in the 5 cities along its banks, the canal meant jobs and a prosperous life. The cities, whose names read like a glossary of exotica: Port Said, Ismailia, Suez itself, Kantara, were once bustling with peddlers of anything you care to name, with oilmen and sailors from a dozen ports. Sidney Greenstreet and Peter Lorre would have been at home here. Today, they are all shell-shocked ghost towns. No market, no bazaar, no white linen suits. The tumbleweed and the hot desert wind have moved in, maybe forever. The canal again blocked by scuttled Egyptian ships. Victorious Israelis holding firmly to the east bank. And over here, on what is the de facto Israeli side of the canal that was to serve, in de Lesseps' words, for the betterment of all mankind, the canal serves, in Moshe Dayan's words, as the biggest anti-tank ditch in the world. Twice in just over 10 years, massive Egyptian armies retreated in disarray behind what was literally their nation's most valuable liquid asset. Instead of making their last line of defense somewhere east of Suez, they chose to hide behind their canal. And in so doing, they may have lost it forever. Not because it's beyond repair, not because of Israeli intransigence. What may have killed the Suez Canal is this: supertankers. Tankers far too deep, far too wide to use the canal. An unheard of 250,000 tons. The biggest ship the canal could take was 60,000 tons. But back in 1966, the Egyptians had foreseen that threat and planned for the age of the supertanker. Their Nasser plan called for doubling the width of the canal, deepening it to take the 250,000 tonners. It was to begin in '67 and be completed the end of next year. In Cairo, amid the carefully planted European gardens of the old Suez Company, the Canal Authority today is an authority without a canal, only a plan. A rather sad group who meets regularly, forever sharpening their plan, ever hopeful that the best days are yet to come, powerless to move so much as a grain of sand from Suez. The three wise men of the Canal Authority are Qasim Sultan, Ali Mahmoud, and Ahmed Amar.
The canal, although it is very vital for Egypt, still it is more vital for the world navigation and also for the world prosperity.
Realistically speaking, when can we expect the Suez Canal to be reopened?
We would like to be given the green light tomorrow. We are dying for this as staff of the Suez Canal, but it is in the hands of the world to solve this problem. It's a pity to see such a nice canal serving the prosperity of the world just lying dead like this.
While they plan in Cairo, in shipyards in Yokohama and Hamburg, the keels are down for 500,000-ton tankers. The plans are drawn for even million-ton tankers, and the Middle East has become crisscrossed with ever bigger pipelines. And right now, Egypt herself is in the process of signing agreements with major oil companies to build her own pipeline, linking Suez with Alexandria and bypassing the canal. In London, where all the world's shipping agreements are made, they say privately that Suez has seen its best days, that the Nasser plan is outdated. There would be little saving over the cost of shipping around the Cape of Africa, given the new canal fees the Egyptians would have to charge for implementing their Nasser plan. The men who say these things are the same men hoping to make use of Egypt's new pipeline. The canal, they feel, is a pipe dream, best left to Egypt to dream about.
It is Egypt's misfortune that even if the Nasser plan were to begin tonight, even if the highest hopes of the three wise men of the Suez Canal Authority were to be fulfilled, it would be too little and too late. Super and more super tankers will continue to pass the canal by, as will Egypt's own enormous oil pipeline. And on the East Bank, the Israelis are not about to pack their tents. Egypt had only a few golden years out of the Suez Canal. Apart from those, the canal has brought only misery and foreigners of every description, just as the prophet told the great and powerful Pharaoh Necho 2,500 years ago.
I was just down the street talking to Tom Armstrong about his new boy. He pulled out about 100 snapshots of him, and the little guy's only 6 weeks old. You know, it's kind of funny how when a man has his first baby, he starts thinking about the future and protection. Anyway, Tom asked me if I'd recommend any life insurance companies. Sure, I said. Northwestern Mutual Life. You know what he says to me? No, I was thinking of one of the big ones. So I came back with, about a size 7 field, Tom. Well, he looked puzzled. So I told him Northwestern Mutual is the 7th largest life insurance company in America, and it's over 100 years old. Then he wants to know how come they're number 7, and he's never heard of them. So I told him it's simple. They've been too busy making sure their life insurance is the best around. Spend much time talking about it.
Northwestern Mutual Life, the quiet company people have been talking about for over 100 years.
This portion of 60 Minutes has been sponsored by
Northwestern Mutual Life, the quiet company people have been talking about for over 100 years.
"60 Minutes will continue after station identification. Travel through outer space with James Caan as a daredevil astronaut on the Friday night movies, 30 minutes from now, on CBS.
The state of California has called for the suspension of a construction firm that has been involved now in 3 major accidents, fatalities involved in each one. And President Nixon is resting comfortable.
Newsroom with Joe Benty at 11. Every night at Magic Mountain, you can enjoy cool breezes, fabulous entertainment, fireworks, and all kinds of wild new excitement. Come on up to Magic Mountain.
The feeling that comes from knowing you put your savings in exactly the right place. That's the Great Western feeling.
At the age of 55, most people's dreams of glory are far behind them. But at 55, Bobby Riggs sees a pot of golden glory just over the horizon. This week, he challenged 29-year-old Billie Jean King, women's champion of Wimbledon and assorted other tennis precincts, to a $100,000 winner-take-all match sometime after Labor Day, and Billie Jean accepted. The whole adventure began for Riggs last Mother's Day, when this aging master of the psych demolished Margaret Court, then regarded as the best woman tennis player in the world. Bobby performed his only gallant act of the afternoon just before the match got underway. It was over almost before it began. Using an endless assortment of junk shots, pat balls, spins, twists, and lobs, Mr. Riggs forced Mrs. Court into error after error. Match point. There it is. The final score, 6-2, 6-1. It was the greatest hustle in sports history. We caught up with Bobby Riggs in Las Vegas, where he had come for Alan King's Tennis Classic at the Caesars Palace. Now, we thought that Las Vegas was a perfect setting for Bobby Riggs. After all, he's flamboyant, he is a gambler, a hustler. He is also a careful man, a prudent man. He never makes a bet unless he thinks the odds are right. That's why he never gambles at the slot machines or the crap tables. You can lose that way. And he likes easy money.
Hey, Birdman, how are you? You want to play me a little backgammon later?
Sure.
I'll give you a chance to win that $3,500 back.
Sure. You want to play me a set?
I can play you a set, kid. I'll play you a set. What do you want to play for? 500, so we'll just make it easy for a whole.
Exercise, I don't play.
Exercise, kid, I don't need. Mrs. Campbell Kennedy, so nice to meet you, dear. Were you rooting for the women's group? What's your best game?
Do something at
We're going to pitch horseshoes or play Jen? What's your best game?
I'll discuss it.
Okay, we'll do it later. Okay, that'll be fun. Any game you want to come up with is fine.
Riggs, nothing to sell. We're playing tennis.
You're paying me for 500 later out there.
500.
500, that's the standard bet, because you missed me in New York that time when you and that
yeah, I know, me and that John Newcomb,
he's just a fair player, was going to play me and anybody I wanted.
Get out of court, they're waiting for you.
Don't you duck me now this afternoon now. Don't run and hide.
What's this all about? All of the running, all of the chasing, all of the betting, all of the playing. What's it all about? Well, do you do it for money, Bobby?
No, I do it for fun. The sport is the thing to do.
Well, how do you
when I can't play for big money, I play for little money. And if I can't play for little money, I stay in bed that day.
That's nothing new for Bobby Riggs. Ask John Budge.
Well, I remember Bobby scared me, because when I won the National Junior Championships, Bobby won the boys of 15 and under, and Bobby one day challenged me to play for $5 at the LA Tennis Club, and not being a gambler, I thought, my gosh, if I lost $5, the world would come to an end. So he's been a gambler ever since I knew him.
Gardner Malloy.
Yes, I mean, he's not going to bother me, or Don Budge, or Segura, or somebody, or Gonzalez, but he'll bother anybody else because they'll let him bother us. You know, they'll change on his side, he'll breathe heavily like he's about to die, and you say, I got him, and then he'll say, you want to double the bet, and so forth and so on, and it's just ridiculous if you pay any attention to him.
Pancho Gonzalez.
He's, you know, figured out how to create interest in the game and attract attention to himself and give the women a chance.
Frank Parker.
He made a name for himself, and right now he's got a bigger name than ever.
There he is.
Listen to Robert.
Just how good a tennis player is Bobby Riggs? In 1937, a teenage Bobby Riggs challenged Frank Parker for the Eastern men's title.
Riggs is in the near court as he gives another sharpshooting exhibition. No wonder he smothers Parker in straight sets and adds the Eastern title to an imposing string of victories this season.
In the next 9 years, Riggs won Wimbledon once, Forest Hills twice, and he bested Jack Kramer for the U.S. Pro Championship in 1946. But soon after that, he seemed to vanish from the scene. For about 20 years, it seemed as though Bobby Riggs disappeared. Where'd you go? Commuting to a job?
Commuting to the American Photograph companies, who we had our home offices at like 32nd and 7th Avenue. It was right across the street from Penn Station, so that wasn't too bad.
Being a good 9-to-5 father and provider and breadwinner and so forth?
Yes, I thought so. However, a lot of people tell you the only reason you got to be executive vice president, you married the boss's daughter. And I'll tell you one thing, if you want to get to the top, that's the fastest way to go.
But your friends tell me that you never were really happy as a father, as a commuter, as a 9-to-5 guy.
I wouldn't say that. I don't want that to be on the record because I had the most lovely wife, most wonderful person, most understanding. I loused the marriage up. There's no question about that because I did like to play my golf. I did like the general. I did like to be with the boys, as she used to call it, you know.
You wanted to be where the action was.
I would like to be, but I didn't get there nearly enough to really satisfy me. So she's made me the happiest person in the world now. She turned me loose, and here I am. I can go any place, do anything at the drop of a hat anywhere, and I'm having a ball now. A 55-year-old guy, if he'll stay on his vitamin pill program, take those 415 vitamins every day, and jog and train and keep his tennis up, why, you can last and beat those girls forever, see?
Bobby, you don't really take 450.
I certainly have for the last 6-7 weeks in a row.
415
Absolutely.
vitamins?
If there's anything that's going to make you healthier and stronger, I'm going to go with it.
Roughly here about 135 pills, and I try to take them 3 times a day. I've gotten so sometimes I can get 10, 12 at one time, one gulp. See, like this. Some of these are tougher to take than others because some of them are bigger. Mm-hmm. Those are those big ones. They're hard to get down.
Are you a vain man? Honest.
Am I what?
Vain.
Vain. Not at all in the sense of vainness, no. I don't care what I wear, how I look, or where I go.
Well, now wait.
I don't care if my car is washed or not. I don't care if I have monogram shirts or diamond pinkies or I'm just as plain as an old shoe. In the sense of being vain in that way, if that's what you mean.
Am I wrong? Didn't your hair used to be the same color as mine 20 years ago?
It looks like yours is pretty dark. You wear that darn hat on. I can't tell whether you got all black hair or if it's gray.
What in the world did you dye your hair for?
What makes you think it's dyed? Where do you come up with that? You getting some secret tips or something?
Bobby.
Look at that.
Now,
beautiful.
Your hair used to be the same.
Are you doing the same thing I am? What product do you use? I like Claire Oil myself. It's a fantastic product, and I can do it myself. I don't even have to go to the hairdresser. I'm not vain enough to do that, but I just like to look young if I can. I like to stay young in spirit and in a physical way. Why do I want to be a gray-haired old guy at 1 foot in the grave? I'd rather have Claire Oil do the job for me. It's beautiful, and I haven't got a dime from them yet so far for saying that. I'll bring it up later.
When you come here to Las Vegas, I never see you playing the slot machines, the crap tables. How come?
That's a sucker's play. You know that. You don't expect Bobby Riggs to be a sucker. They love to play the bargain hunter. See, they always are looking for a bargain, and they think they have a bargain. That's the larceny in them. They think they got something on you. They think you were stupid. You made a bad bet. They know how well they do something. They think they have an advantage on you, and I love to meet people like that. I love them to let them take advantage of me, because the tougher it is, the more kicks I get out of winning.
While we were with Bobby in Las Vegas, he let 5 people take advantage of him in various competitions. He putted against Joe Louis, shot free throws against NBA pro Dick Van Arsdale, and played tennis against Paul Anka and Steve Lawrence, holding a valise in his left hand and dodging 8 chairs that he had placed on his side of the court. He even had time for a poker game and for a session of flipping cards into a basket. Watch what happened, and you'll see why Sports Illustrated says, never bet against this man.
This is Art Tilton, who is associated with Ponce Segura in the tennis world. Great player and a great teacher, and the guy has a lot of guts to play me poker, I'll tell you that. I'll kill him. I'm rusty when it comes to golf, so we got to start out with the theory that, of course, you can beat me on this putting green. So you give me 1 up on the first 9. If you beat me, I get 2 on the backside. And if I win that Nassau, we come back and I play you even up on the next go-around. Tell me you shot like 85 to 90% average. And that's in a game with guys all over your tire. Here you're just out here.
Nobody was talking to me there.
Are you ready, Lordy? I'm going to shoot first and put the pressure on you.
Put it on.
Okay, ready, set, go.
Hey, sit back. You're supposed to have your back in the chair.
I'm sitting on the chair. What are you doing, trying to rattle me? Oh! Okay. We got to remove a couple of chairs now. You guys got me point man. All right, get a good streak going. That's what, 3 in a row?
Yeah.
4? All right. I wish they had a net in there. It's so much more fun. You can swish them through. I hope I don't choke. I'm not known as a choker, but let's see. Stay loose on this. Oh, I got it in there.
Holy God. Wait a minute.
I got it. Got it. That point. Oh, that point. It's good off the chair. See, it's in play, sure. I won that hand with a check. I was a good, smart player. It would have bluffed me then. If you bet 100, you bet 5 blueies, you might win that hand. All right, why didn't you think of it? What'd I tell you, Joe? Joe, you did it. You saved the press bet, Joe. You only go for 2 ways, the original 9 and a Nassau. You're beautiful. Tomorrow I'll give you a chance to double up and get even. I don't guess there's any question who's the champ between you and me in this game, right?
Yes,
you
sir.
concede? You concede?
I concede on
2
this
out of
match.
3 you lost. Now, see, you got to have a faster shoot like this, see? Like that, see?
I like the bank.
Gotta drill them in there like that, see? I get more action on the thing. I got a better toss than you. You see that. I want you to know I never quit on anybody, and you're entitled to return match. Just name the date, the amount, and where you want to play.
You're 55 now. Look ahead 20 years. Bobby Riggs is 75. What'll he be doing?
I'll be playing in the 75 and over championships of the world, and I'll be going around challenging anybody that age and over for a $50,000 winner-take-all match. I hope. I'll be playing lots of handicap matches. I'll have a barrel of money put away by that time, more than I'll ever be able to need, and the young players around, I'll have terrific fun. I'll say, listen, if you kids can beat me now, you got to put park benches on the court and wear an overcoat. But I'd like to win. I'll want to be on that #1 court, on the stage, want to be playing, want to be having fun, want to be alive, want to be part of the thing. Get all the money in the world, and you're sitting in a rocking chair and drinking mint juleps with a rocking chair and had all the money in the world. What fun is that?
Bobby, how long are you going to live?
I'm going to live minimum 95, and I'll be challenging you right now that I make it to 100. You want to give me the right odds, I'll go for it.
At 100, his tennis strokes, his putting, his free throws, and his poker game would probably have slowed down some. But we'll give you odds of 10 to 1 that his mouth will still be going strong. Wally?
Well, Mike, Billie Jean King has quite a mouth of her own. We discovered that when we followed her on the tennis circuit.
Get this point. Come on, baby. Come on. Outside, 15 all. Hold on to your racket. No more mistakes like that. Every ball in play. Dumby. Come on. Double fault. This is great. Christmas every day with BJ. Jesus Christ, Billy. How can you do that?
The life of a professional athlete is the shortest, most precarious, possibly most rewarding, certainly the most exhausting. An hour of road work each day, 2 or 3 hours of practice, and usually a match, sometimes 2, in smart country clubs and forgettable tank towns. I'd like to get up one day, she says, and put on a real dress that's not wrinkled, and makeup, and not take 2 or 3 showers, and just look beautiful all day long.
I think people think I must be the toughest little old lady that ever lived when they see me play tennis. But I don't think I'm so tough off the court.
On the court, she demonstrates a rare combination. She has the flair that makes for a great performer, and skill really never seen before in women's tennis. She plays the game like a man.
I'll be honest with you, I can go on the court against a fellow, and even if I can beat him, I don't want to. Because I tell you, some fellows have such a bad ego trip that it's not worth it.
She is not the darling of the white flannel set, who like to think of tennis as an elite game for the quiet, gentle, and rich. She belongs to the gallery, a people's player.
Would the spectators please try to contain themselves during play?
Oh, I love it.
All right? Fine.
Billie Jean is winning all it's cracked up to be.
You know, some people just want to win, but I like to win my way. There's got to be a certain style, a certain feeling when you win.
Game, Miss King.
Mike, I think she's going to take him.
Oh, I doubt it, Molly. He's my man. But I tell you what, Riggs and Wallace for $5 against King and Safer.
You're on.
The reason for choosing one antiperspirant spray over another is kind of a private matter. But here's a new one called Sure. That's so different, I don't mind talking about it. Watch. Most antiperspirant sprays go on wet and oily, compared to New Sure, which goes on dry. Now, I'm not saying this proves New Sure keeps you drier. In fact, there's only one place you can prove that to yourself, under your own two arms, and that's where it counts. Try New Sure on your left side, and the antiperspirant spray you like best on your right side. If you're like most people, your left side will be drier than your right side, I'm sure. But this is something you should try for yourself. You've got two arms. You decide. Try New Sure on your left side. It'll convince your right side, I'm sure.
Oh, does my stomach feel lousy?
Maybe you're coming down with something.
Yeah, with your sister's cooking.
Or maybe you're just upset.
My stomach's upset from your sister's cooking.
Well, he does need help.
She needs help. I need help.
Here.
Pepto-Bismol works no matter what upsets your stomach. It coats and soothes. It's a kind of protective coating between the upset and the stomach. Pepto-Bismol.
And that settles that.
Tools are my living. I use 3-in-1 oil to help prevent rust and keep my tools working better and lasting longer. Here's a tip. These two workmen have identical saws. We'll wipe this one with 3-in-1 oil. 3-in-1 oil with Lubershield makes the oiled saw slippery, so it cuts easier, faster. Use 3-in-1 oil to help prevent rust, so tools work better, last longer. And for repairs, use genuine plastic wood. Next best thing to wood itself.
Pornography in the law is very much a subject of current debate, particularly in view of the Supreme Court's recent decision to leave it to local communities to decide what is pornographic and what is not. Herewith, point counterpoint.
Tonight's debate stems from the Supreme Court's recent opinions on pornography, holding that there is such a thing at law as obscenity, that it's not protected by the First Amendment, and that within careful limits, applying to hardcore stuff only, local communities can invoke state laws to suppress it. With a good many doubts and reservations, Nick, I support the court's view. I'd like to see the new guidelines given a reasonable try. This is because I believe the hardcore stuff is a social evil, like pollution in a river. And like billboards on a scenic highway, or sound trucks in a quiet neighborhood, or false cries of fire in a crowded theater, I believe that pornography can be lawfully excluded from First Amendment protection. If juries can define what is negligence, or what is an eyesore, or what is disorderly conduct, all of them elusive terms at law, juries can define obscenity, too. But my own view, Nick, is that on balance, censorship does more harm than even hardcore pornography to a healthy society. But most people disagree with me on that, and I respect their concern. They're entitled to conclude, even if they can't prove it, that just as good books elevate and inspire, so bad books degrade and debase. And if those opposed to pornography will now show restraint, be reasonable, and leave serious works alone, we may yet cleanse our river of robust ideas of some of the pollution that fouls it now.
My friend Jack here says if only those opposed to pornography will show restraint, everything will be hunky-dory. Except that's the one thing they won't do. Why, Jack, you yourself are one of the first victims of this idiot decision. You may not know this, ladies and gentlemen, but the ink was hardly dry on the Supreme Court documents when some tank-town sheriff in Virginia, Jack's own state, outlawed the July issue of Playboy magazine. And who was one of the distinguished authors contributing to that issue? It was my good friend and fraternal sparring partner, James J. Kilpatrick. My boy Jack, banned and branded in his own state as a vile writer of pornography and a purveyor of filth. Well, you had me fooled, Jack, old buddy. I always had you pegged as a fair and square conservative, and a darn good writer, too. But the Supreme Court says that sheriff is the one to decide, to use the language of the court, that your writing is, quotes, capable of encouraging or causing antisocial behavior, especially in its impact on young people. My, who'd have ever guessed? Great Supreme Court decision. The police burn this man's writings. Need I say it happens every time they muck with the First Amendment? Well, Jack, you may be a little soft in the head, but you ain't hardcore. And I hope the court restores the First Amendment, if for no other reason than the folks in Virginia, even their kids, will enjoy what you have to say.
Our discussion about Watergate with 6 members of the Kiwanis Club of Noblesville, Indiana, brought a fair amount of mail. One viewer wrote, "I'm glad to see people finally giving the president the benefit of the doubt." But another viewer claimed, "Noblesville is the birthplace of the John Birch Society, a group which insists any means justifies the end. Not all Hoosiers embrace this fallacious logic. Count us, too." About our story on the U.S. Postal Service, we heard from several postmen. One wrote, "The reason United Parcel Service shows a profit and the U.S. Postal Service does not is that the private company accepts only profitable business. United Parcel says not true." And another postman said, "Our competitor, United Parcel, isn't so efficient. At times, I've been stopped by their drivers asking for directions where to make deliveries." And finally, about the Postmaster General's suggestion for speeding up the mail, a viewer wrote, he stated that a 10-cent stamp would improve the efficiency of the postal carriers. It's like saying that the cow will be more productive if you charge 50 cents for a quart of milk.
I'm Orly Safer. I'm Mike Wallace, and we'll be back next Friday night with another edition of 60 Minutes.
You're watching Racing History in the Making. Richard Petty in the STP Oil Treatment Special, on his way to an unprecedented 4th NASCAR Grand National Championship. One big reason he won, he didn't take chances with his engine. He got the racer's edge with STP Oil Treatment. And so can you. Add STP to your oil. Make Richard Petty's edge your edge.
If you use a toothpaste for cleaning your dentures, there's something you should know. Of all the leading toothpastes, only one is specially made for dentures, Denture-Cream. In a nationwide survey, dentists recommended Denture-Cream for brushing dentures over the leading whitener, over the leading brightener, over the leading cavity fighter, over any leading toothpaste. If you use toothpaste for cleaning your dentures, why not use the toothpaste more dentists recommend, Denture-Cream?
Juan Perón advances closer to assuming power in Argentina, and President Nixon resting comfortably tonight in the hospital. I'm Joseph Benty. I'll have details on those stories and all the news tonight at 11 from the KNXT newsroom.
Relive television history with Edward R. Murrow from the memorable See It Now series. The next CBS News retrospective Sunday at 6, 5 Central Time on CBS.